It's another episode of the Audacious Confidence Show here on Dramaniac TV. I am your host, Alicia Khoury, and I am the Red Carpet CEO. I'm here to influence, educate, inspire, and entertain you so you can step into your own audacious confidence and be more, do more, have more, live the life of your dreams without limits. And I just love this show. I love this show because I get to speak to the most amazing and incredible people and share their stories, share their journeys of confidence when they had it, when they didn't, how they recognized they didn't, how they were able to grow from it. And hopefully through that dialogue, it can help you boost your own audacious confidence, because each and every one of us deserve to have a little bit of boldness and a whole lot of confidence. So that's what we're here to do tonight. And my guest tonight, she is one of my wonderful friends. She is such a joy, such a pleasure. I am so honored and thrilled to have her on the show tonight. I'm going to read you a little bit about Dr. Shelley Plumb. She is a woman on a mission. She's a wife, a mother, a physician, and the executive producer of PlumbTalk Productions. She focuses her gifts on uplifting and inspiring others, which is why she is on this show. She was born in Renton, Washington, and has lived a lifelong love of nature. We were just talking about that before we went live. We'll talk about that with her also, her love of nature, hiking, biking, camping with family and friends. Adversity came to Shelley at a very early age when she was 7 years old. She lost her mother in a fatal car accident, and she survived the tragedy and has been living a legacy of perseverance ever since. And that's what we're also going to touch on that today. And she refuses to let personal trauma define who she is, which is so amazing. She has such a spirit about her. Shelley received her undergraduate degree and honors from Pacific University and went on to earn her doctorate degree from Skoll College, I hope I said that correctly, of podiatric medicine. I said that one right, podiatric. She served as chief podiatry resident at the prestigious Chester Medical Center of Pennsylvania, where she completed her podiatric surgical training. So she is now the founder and CEO and executive producer of PlumbTalk Productions here in West Palm Beach, Florida. And she provides worldwide state-of-the-art video production services for businesses. She assists individuals in achieving their lifelong ambitions through increased exposure and the power of video marketing. She is revered in her professional community for her creativity and attention to detail. And she's said by many to put the heart back into video production. She is also the author of To Break or Bounce. That's what the name of the book is.
Hi, Alicia. How are you?
I keep thinking in my head, not break, but to bounce. And I'm like, that's not the name. That's not the title of the book. I mean, that's the theme of the book, but it's not the title. So Shelley.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. To break or bounce.
To break or bounce.
Yes, that's it.
Not to break, but to break or bounce.
But you're right. We don't want to break. We want to bounce back.
We want to bounce back. And you are the master of the bounce back, lady.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you.
So right away, just listening to your kind of the career that you went through. I mean, you studied podiatry and you became this really great doctor, and then shifted into PlumbTalk Productions. Mm-hmm. There's a part of the book where you were talking about being a perfectionist and having to have everything right. Where did that show up in your life?
Perfectionism?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I think it started very early. I actually cannot remember a time in my life when perfectionism was not a part of my psyche, being honest. When I was younger, like really young, like in elementary school, I don't think that I really was aware of it. But looking back now, I know that that's what it was. I wasn't calling it perfectionism, but it really was. So really, honestly, in answer to your question, it was all the way back to when I was really little.
Yeah. What's the difference, just for anyone watching, what's the difference between high achiever and perfectionism?
Mm. I think high achiever is a healthy modality. On the other hand, perfectionism takes that high achievement and takes it to a level that it's almost like light and dark. It's down a dark path.
Mm,
That's what happened to me. It's because being perfect, doing everything perfect is in my opinion not achievable. And when you're constantly striving for that, you're setting yourself up for failure. High achievement, on the other hand, you can be a high achiever and be doing so well, but still fail here and there and not be
and
able
be
to do
okay.
everything perfect.
Mhm.
Exactly. So that's the difference, in my opinion.
And so, one of the things you touched on, which I want to kind of amplify a little bit, because when you say it goes down a dark path,
Mm-hmm.
how does that affect your confidence? Because if you're trying to achieve something that's unachievable,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do? What is the voice inside of your head telling you?
Well, you know what? I mean, I can speak to really specific moments in my life is that when something would go wrong, I would almost default to trying to work harder and harder and harder. And if things went wrong, I would go even harder to make it perfect. And every time I tried to make it perfect, it didn't work. It didn't work. And so then I would start, those little voices in my head would start beating me up. Well, you're not good enough. You didn't study enough. You didn't do this. So my self confidence would take a hit, a significant hit. And then it was almost like a snowball effect, Alicia. The more I strived for perfection, the worse I did, the less my confidence were, and then I would fail even more. So it
Yeah,
was like
a
a
vicious
downward
cycle.
spiral. Yeah.
And I believe that is also a great juxtaposition for high achievement, because it's completely different. Because
Yes.
if you're a high achiever and you're achieving because you're striving to achieve better and do better the next time, it's very different than if you're being in that perfectionist mold and failing and failing
Right.
and failing and then
Right.
wondering, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? And then the stress of that takes over.
Yeah.
Sebastian says Dr. Shelley Plumb is one of the kindest, most accepting people I know. Thank you for starting your story and
Oh,
journey. Sharing, sorry, your story and journey.
thank you.
Yeah,
That's so sweet.
yeah,
You know,
he is.
I don't know. I love you guys, and you know what? You're talking, and you know what I'm thinking is that when you're a high achiever, there is no such thing as failure, is there?
There's just
Because
lessons learned.
you just take a misstep, you learn from it, and then you just keep going.
Right.
So you know, I think that's the difference, right? Between a high achiever and perfectionism is based on failure.
Yes. And just like your book says, to break or bounce, perfectionism will break you
Yes.
because it's not achievable. And whereas high achievement, you can bounce from one misstep. You say, okay, that didn't work, but this is what I learned. And you go ahead and you bounce into the next thing. Parker says perfectionism is such a pain in the, you know what.
It's true. Yes. I agree, Parker. I do.
I mean, I think to some degree, most of us have a little bit of that perfectionism where we want to get things right,
Yes.
where we try so hard to get something right. But where it tips the scale, in my opinion, and you can share from your own experience, is when you continue to try to get it so right that you are almost paralyzed by
Yes.
it,
Right.
because it'll never be right. And so, let's say a book report, you're
Yes.
trying to make it absolutely perfect, and you keep thinking, oh, I have to add this, oh, I have to do this, oh, I forgot this, and then the time passes for you to turn it in, and you never turn it in because it was just never right.
Right. The
Yeah.
enemy of good is better, right? I mean, it's the same adage. I remember, I mean, there's been times where I've learned that lesson the hard way. I mean, I remember going through my divorce. I'll share this with you. I went through my divorce and I strived to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect, physician, all of that. And I started going down that dark place and that downward spiral. And I lost my confidence. I lost it 100% and kept beating myself up. And, and then the harder I worked, the worse it got. And then I would work harder. I ended up getting pneumonia. I ended up, on antibiotics, all of that. So it really has a very disastrous effect on your health.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Kathy said hi, she's here. And I think, did Parker say something else too? I saw it flash across the screen. He said he loves the title. Parker's commenting from Facebook. So smart and deep. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Cece is here. Cece from eye surgery, back from eye surgery. I'm so glad that everything went successful for you, Cece. And Kathy, hi, Kathy. She's here. Nice
Oh,
to see you, Kathy. Yes. So it's for those of you who are struggling with perfectionism and it's really hindering your confidence. What are some things that you can share with others about recognizing it and then how to kind of make a shift for yourself?
You know what? One thing that helps me now, because I don't know, it's almost programmed in me to strive for perfectionism, not necessarily, and the high achievement as well, but the perfectionism is I catch my thinking. And when I catch myself doing, okay, it has to be this way, it has to be this way, I stop myself and I actually say stop. And then I stop and I'm like, why does it have to be that way? And if you do fail at this, what's the worst that can happen? Many times when I ask myself that, the worst that can happen is really not that bad.
Right.
And then, if I do fail, well then, there's an alternative route that I could go. So we have to look at all the parameters of the perfection and realize that it's not attainable. And if we fail, it's something to step back on and look at it. And what did it teach me? That's really important.
Yes. Absolutely. August, can you put that back up? August says, I find perfectionism can become such a hurdle that it can get really frustrating. Thank you, August, commenting on Facebook. So we are streaming live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch. So if you're on any of those platforms watching right now, please say hi to us so that we can acknowledge you. One last thing on perfectionism I wanted to touch on is that when we are striving to do something, because you said, you physically say stop,
right,
to stop yourself from doing it. Because I think a lot of, especially women who are moms trying to be the perfect mother and the perfect everything else, to recognize that it's just an illusion.
Yeah.
Really.
Right.
That's what you're really saying, stop. What is the worst that can happen? What are other ways I can do this? And just kind of calm yourself from being so worked up about getting it absolutely right. A Facebook user says, this will be a good show and a subject I know all too well. I believe I know who this comment is from. Is that Adam Clark from the United Kingdom? Hey, Adam. Yes. Because do you believe there's fear attached to perfectionism?
I think there is tremendous fear. And that fear comes from a lack of confidence. And, back to what do I do to, get around the concept of perfection is I've had to take a step back. And this has been hard for me, is to take a step back and tell myself that I am a beautiful, confident human being, and remind myself of that and realize that, I am perfectly imperfect. And I know you've read the book, so you know that I talk about perfection that way, is each of us are perfectly imperfect human beings. And what would the world be like if we weren't like that? Because our imperfections make us who we are, right?
We'd be robots.
And we'd be robots. We'd be all the same. Yeah. So our imperfections are to be celebrated. Exactly. Embraced, because that is and gives rise to our true gifts in our life.
So you have been watching the Audacious Confidence Show with my guest here, Dr. Shelley Plumb, and we are talking about her new book, To Break or Bounce. And one of the areas that she struggled with was perfectionism. And so as we close out this segment, I just wanted to just again tell everybody, hi, I'm your host, Alicia Curry, and this is the Audacious Confidence Show. We are live streaming from Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope here. And so please join us. Let us know that you're here. And I want to now take this next segment to talk about where did that come from? Because you said from very early childhood, you remember having this perfectionism, but we mentioned that you lost your mom when you were 7. So let's talk about that a little bit and how it affected you.
Well, I unfortunately, when I was 7 years old, and this is also in the book, I detail it. I was in a car accident with my mother, and my brother was in the car as well, and we unfortunately lost her. And at a young age, when you're 7, 8 years old, you know what it's. I had so many people tell me, Alicia, even now, they're like, oh, well, you were so young. You don't remember any of it.
Oh,
that's what they hear. I hear that even today. And nothing could be further from the truth. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was funny, the book, and I know you know this, is that writing the book was like therapy for me. Because as I was writing, the tears were streaming and I felt so much better after. But after getting done, writing the book, and all the readers out there, if you read the book, that therapy was amazing, because in the end, I realized that there was a little girl in me that was blaming myself for the accident. And it was that constant striving for perfection was my way of almost like punishing myself. And right. Yeah. So, I get teary-eyed just thinking about it.
Wow. And I have to tell you and tell the audience, this book is so beautifully written. It's so the imagery and she puts you right there. Kathy is saying, when I was young, I was known as clean and pristine Kathleen. I was a perfectionist, but not anymore. Good.
Well, good. She's perfectly imperfect, like we all are. You know what? Then her gifts are going to come through, shining through.
Yeah. Santosh is not well, but she's watching. Love you too, Santosh. Get well soon, hon. So having lost any parent and the Sebastian says, I cannot count the number of times I bawled my eyes out reading the book. I'm so honored to get the privilege to be one of the ones to read the pre-publication. Yes, we got a chance to read it before it was published. Thank you for being so incredible.
Oh, thank you.
It is.
You all are incredible. Really.
Yeah, such an amazingly written book. And the thing is, when you're really young, you're especially around 7, you already know your mom.
Yes.
You remember her. And that is, you're still forming who you are as a person. You're still kind of trying to form, but you had someone else in your life that kind of stepped in for you.
Yes.
At that time. And who was that for you?
That was my grandmother. Initially, yes, my father and my mother at the time were divorced. And excuse me, my father was living in another location, and my grandmother was right there with me. And I remember her being there the day of the accident. So she was there. She wasn't there during the accident, but at the hospital, I remember her being there. And I remember her looking at us, and my brother and I, and saying, you know what, I'm going to take you home now. And you know what, I always remember her warmth and her compassion. And really, the book is really about that, and the lessons that the wonderful lessons that I have learned from her.
Yeah.
And, my father and now my mother, my stepmother, they ended up coming to get my brother and I from my grandmother's. But you know what, all the 3 of them have really shaped who I am today.
Yeah, which is great.
In a positive way, really.
In a positive way. So, even though You do miss your mom because she's your mother,
Yes.
of course. You still had people around you that were strong and helped shape and influence your life.
Mm-hmm.
And as even though you were, like you said, blaming yourself, and that's a subconscious action where you continue to strive to punish yourself for even, the accident happening that you had absolutely no control over as a 7-year-old child. Then college, you went through college, and then the other thing happened. That person in your life that was like the rock for you passed away. Your grandmother.
Yes, my grandmother passed away. Yes, and that was it. That, you know what? It's funny because with perfectionism, there comes with that a lot of traits that are probably not too great.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is you're excessively busy and you get immersed in everything that you're doing at the time. And unfortunately, I can speak from my standpoint, is you take things for granted. And what that is the loved ones in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
she was one of them. And she was sick with breast cancer. And I, would check in on her and, but she was miles and miles away. And I was not fully aware of how sick she was. And
Mm-hmm.
she ended up passing away before I could say goodbye.
Mm. So that also hit you hard because
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
another thing to blame yourself for it. Parker is saying he shared it. World needs this message. You are always smiling despite all odds. Incredible. Thank you, Parker.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So now you have another loss, and it's another guilt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
On top of that, because
Right.
now you were working so hard that you didn't have time for her. So where did that lead you?
That led me down a dark place, a dark rabbit hole. And it ended up with, not that everything is directly related, but there were things in my life that didn't work out from there. And, I did end up getting a divorce from my husband. I ended up with it, realizing that my job at the time was not exactly what I wanted to be doing. So that dark place was terrible and terrifying in a way, but in many respects, I healed there. There was healing that was done in that place.
It needed to happen so that you can strip away the layers.
Right. It took me, honestly, I mean, carrying your metaphor to the next level, I remember, and I know I've told you this before, collapsing on my bedroom floor and just sobbing. I had hit rock bottom. You know what? She was gone. My marriage was not doing well. I did not like where I was in my job. I knew I needed to make a change, but I was terrified to do it. Where do you go from there? I was bare naked, basically.
Right.
All the layers were gone. So, but it was there that I sat down and I listed everything that was important to me, not to my mother, not to my father, not to my kids, not to my ex-husband, nothing like that, to me. And I realized that's not selfish. We have to do that.
Yeah.
And from there, the healing begins. Right.
Right. So why podiatry, by the way?
You know what? That's a great, as opposed to any other medical field?
Just medicine on a whole, because, when you came to that realization that this is not really where I wanted to be, how did you end up there?
Yeah, that's a really great question. When I was in college, I was actually a communication major. So I was writing promos, doing cameras, doing, work in a studio, all of that. And I think it actually ties into the perfectionism and the lack of confidence. I had people who were, oh, you're going to go into communications and in broadcast. You shouldn't be doing that. You really need to be in medicine because that's the career that, you'll make a living, that type of thing. And I wasn't confident enough in myself. Looking now, I don't think I was confident enough in myself to follow the path that my heart really
your heart was
right.
leading you. Right. Yeah. You had to listen to what I've been there, listening to what everybody was telling you need to do because, well, they know better because you don't trust yourself. You don't have confidence in what you think you should be doing.
Right.
So your teachers know better, the counselors know better, your parents know better, everybody knows better except you.
Right.
Follow what they
Exactly.
tell
Yeah.
you to do.
So I followed the path of medicine, and the perfectionism kicked in, and did I do well? Yes, I did well. I
Because
absolutely
you're an achiever. You don't have the
exactly.
perfection. You are an achiever.
Right. And and I absolutely, what I love the most about medicine was my
Yeah.
patience. I
Yeah.
loved caring for
You love
people.
people. Right.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
obviously saying it's very tiring to be a perfectionist, though. It is.
Oh my gosh, it's exhausting. Yes. So yes. So perfectly imperfect. It's better to be that.
Yeah, and he's also saying it. Can you put that back up, producer? He's also saying it's not easy to not feel selfish, though. You want to be there for others first and put them first. It's true, you do want to, and at some point, you end up collapsed on the floor. At some point, you
True.
real
Yeah.
your cup is empty.
Right.
That's
I,
what happens. You
you know
empty.
what? That's an interesting comment, and I agree. I mean, we definitely need to help people and be kind and compassionate. But you're right too, Alicia. Is that we have to really keep a wary eye on that glass, because
Mhm.
if that glass gets dangerously low, we're no good to anybody, including
Yeah,
ourselves.
you can't
So
serve from an empty cup. You cannot serve from an empty cup. So that at some point you have to find things that fill you up so
mhm.
that you can now go and be of service to someone else. Otherwise, you just, your cup will be empty and it will break.
It will totally break.
It'll
So
just
I don't
shatter.
know. I guess that's one thing. Pushing past perfectionism is I have learned to really keep a watchful eye on that cup, and it's a feeling really. So for the most part, and when I am feeling like it is getting below the halfway mark, I tell people, you know what, I will help you in just a minute. Let me just take a moment, and then I'm good, and then my glass is full again, and I can help.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to take a beat. You need to say, okay, time out.
Just
Mama
and
needs
yeah, and sometimes it's just for me just stepping outside to get some fresh air.
fresh air and just because we all know, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment, how much you love nature.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Lover. So you have been watching the Audacious Confidence Show. I am your host, Alicia Khoury, and I have such an amazing guest with me today. She is the wonderful Dr. Shelley Plumb of PlumbTalk Productions here in West Palm Beach, Florida. And we're talking about her new book that has been launched today. Her book launched today, and it's called To Break or Bounce. And we're going in the next segment. We're going to talk more about the book and as we followed her journey through perfectionism and the struggle and the tragedy that she's lived through. Now we get to talk about that cathartic moment when you actually wrote this book and experienced such healing from writing
Yes.
your book. So, what led you to write the book in the first place?
My grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
The book was motivated by her,
Mm-hmm.
and I recall many times when I was in college, I would come back and I would visit her, and she'd be always so interested in my travels. What did you do? What did you see? How did it make you feel? I have such warm memories of that. And every time I would explain where I'd been and what I'd done, she would tell me, you need to write that down. There will be a day when you will either not remember or won't be as crisp. You need to write it down. You need that life's log.
Nice.
And I was so busy trying to do everything perfectly, and my career and all of that I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when she passed, there was an aha moment, and I was like, you know what, I need to write it down. So that's when I started writing the book. I started writing the book in response to remembering her words of advice to me.
Can you hold it up? Hold it up for us.
Of course.
Yes, let us see it. So put her on solo, and so we can see the full book. There we go. To break or bounce, and we
Yes.
see the trees, we see the nature, we see the grass.
Yes, right.
That is, you love nature, you love green, and so in the book, it's filled with such beautiful imagery. And I love how you just, you just really paint this tapestry of nature, and you bring me right into where you are in the moment. Even in the accident, when you describe the accident, it's so vivid, and so clear. How do you get back to that place so that you can be so vivid?
You know what? It's memories, and what I it's funny because I always think I think in metaphors, and I always describe nature it's interesting, as a symphony, believe it or not. Okay, so you have an orchestra. An orchestra, if you go somewhere to listen to a band or an orchestra, they have the horns, they have the guitars, so it's all layers, right?
Right.
And from as a little girl, I always thought of nature as a symphony, believe it or not.
Yeah. That
And
makes sense. That's how you wrote it.
right, because okay, the bass line, in a regular orchestra might be the horns. Okay, well, my the thing in the symphony with everything was the wind. The wind would be the bass line, and then you add that the swaying of the trees, and then you add the call of the birds, and then I mean, you just add one layer at a time. And honestly, I spent so many wonderful, wonderful summers with my grandmother sitting on the porch just listening, that
Mhm.
I can still, even now sitting here, can really describe it in detail.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. I want to just read this quick little passage. Oh, I lost it. Now I lost it. I tried to, I have it right here on my screen, but I tried to find the exact place, and it scrolled away. But there's a passage that you were talking about, the ball being stuck in the vine, the like the thicket.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and how, it just, those layers, the bird and you really describe exactly what you were saying, and I was just going to read that, but we're moving on since
It's
I
okay.
fumbled the ball.
No worries. No worries. I remember that part too, is that, um, there's an interesting play with when I was writing the book, is that I would tie in the nature or an animal with
Mhm.
what was going on with the ball, because the ball is a big theme in it.
Right.
And when the ball was caught in the confines of the vines. Is that the part you were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, and how, when we are caught in the confines, even in our life, when we feel like we're bound down by strife and sorrow and all of that, the more we struggle and the more we panic, the worse it gets. And
Right.
that's kind of where I was going with that section is, and it corresponds that with nature. There was a duck that I was talking about at that particular point that was stuck, and the more it struggled, the worse it got for the duck. And so it was interesting, because as I'm writing the book, I'm learning lessons. I
Right.
didn't set out to learn that lesson, but I'm writing it going, that makes sense, doesn't
It's so
it?
metaphorical in what you're going through in your life. I found the passage. It says, several minutes pass. Soon the stately bird settles down, which is the duck you're talking about that is stuck. Tucks her wings neatly behind her and stares at me intently. It's odd, as I almost feel awkward with her gaze directly upon me. I find it more comfortable to look past her than right at her, and my eyes track to the ball, still restrained by the thorny grip of the vines. It is evident that the ball cannot venture further. It is trapped by the thorns, which have started to tear at the old red rubber. I catch sight of the scratches and a hole that is allowing precious air to escape. Oh.
Mm, yes,
And
yes,
sometimes we feel like that. We feel stuck, and the
right.
thorns have pierced us, and now air, our breath is just leaving our bodies because it's
Mhm.
like,
Right,
oh,
right,
yeah. So it's very metaphorical, just as we struggle and we're stuck. And so
right.
you got to get this book. It's
And
really,
and that part really goes back to our glass scenario, because the ball losing its air, if we're the ball and we're losing our air, and we just continue to push and push and push and push, pretty soon there's going to be no air.
yeah,
And there'll
because we
be
keep
no
pushing
ball.
into the thorns. Right. You'll keep
Yeah.
pushing into those thorns and lose all your air. So you need to
Right.
find a way to be released from that.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I missed some of the comments as I was reading. Let me see if I can track some of those again. Yeah. So Kathy said sometimes you have to force yourself to take care of yourself. Yes, absolutely, Kathy. And I believe Noah said hi. Noah is watching. Hi, Noah. And so there are a lot of metaphors in the book. And as you were writing through the book, you were healing and you were taking some of those metaphors and applying it to your life and seeing how you could change things for yourself.
Right. Yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's funny. I set out with each section of the book, not really knowing where it was going to go. And in the end, each section really taught me a lesson. And it's interesting because the readers out there, you will know more about me than you ever wanted to know. That's for sure. And it goes through not just my grandmother and my mother, but things that my children have done that I was like, wow, they were so intuitive. At 2 years old, my little boy teaching me something. And it was at the end, I felt, when I was done writing the book, I felt exhausted, but strangely exhilarated, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write? Sebastian has a comment too. How long did it take you to write it?
That is a very interesting question because I procrastinated. I will be honest with you, because it was incredibly painful for me to write. And there were times that I had to, but remembering my grandmother and my mother, I realized I need to sit down and write. But it took me 3 years. 3 years to write, and then another year to get it revised and off to the editors and that type of thing, because there were times that I honestly had to, there's writer friends of mine that say, yeah, I sit down, it just flows. I can't wait to write. I mean, I had to actually nail myself to the chair to make myself write some days, because it was just painful. Some of the circumstances in there were painful. They were embarrassing. They were all of that. And, but in the end, after I was done with each section, I'm like, okay, well, I know this has helped me. I hope it'll help someone else too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the reason I asked you how long it took, because I wanted people to understand that there's a process, and you talked about healing through it as well. And so if you are struggling with this and you've had loss, or you've had something happen in your childhood, and writing, Oprah told, that's what Tyler Perry, that's why he's so great at writing right now, because she said writing is cathartic. You have to get it out and write it out. And so having the opportunity, as painful as it is, take your time, go through it, but don't give up. It took you 3 years, it could take you 10 years. Keep going. If you have a book inside of you from your experiences or from your childhood or something like that you want to write, or even just to write it, to get it out, take that time, sit down and do it, even if it's just a little bit, every day, to take the time to do it, because it will benefit you as it has benefited Shelley. Mm-hmm. And so where does your confidence stand now, Miss Dr. Plumb?
You know what? My confidence is good now, and I will preface that by saying that I do have moments. Yes, I'm honestly, I am perfectly imperfect, and I do have moments where I have significant doubt, and that little voice will rear its head and say, you know what, you're not good enough. Don't do this. Yeah. But I am leaps and bounds above where I was 10 years ago. And and it's something that I teach my children, honestly, is that it is okay to mess up. What is not okay is to beat yourself up about it and then not learn from that mistake and make your future better from it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Picture a Moment, Pet Production says, great show, thank you. And Sebastian had said he's buying multiple copies. I know several who will truly benefit from your journey and power. He's also on YouTube and says, great to see you on YouTube, Cece. Shelley's amazing, just like you. Yeah, I'm just kind of recalling what flashed in front of us before. Now Sebastian is saying he's been writing. Can you put it back up, producer? He's been writing since 4 years, chapter 13 of 27 done.
Oh, good.
It's really difficult to open up and not break down. Sometimes you have to break down to break through it, you know, it's okay. But
I'll share it with you. I mean, today the book has officially launched, and it's been such a process that in my studio, in my office, I broke down and bawled. I did, because it's been such a process.
Yeah, it's been a process, and it's your heart on your sleeve. It's really your heart out there. And I really want people to enjoy this book, to get it. Thank you, Cece. Cece on YouTube says it's a great show. To get the book and go through it, because it is just so profound. And I love what you said about your children, because it's so true. If we can teach them now about that, it will only benefit them more and more and more, because I know it's something that creeps in. It's so insidious. It starts creeping in.
Yes.
School, you know, as they enter school, and they have this desire to do everything right. And that's where, thank you, Kathy. Kathy says, great show. They have this desire to do everything right. And I think that's where the perfectionism starts creeping in, because they feel they have to do everything right and they can't do it wrong.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's almost, as a parent, and tell me what you think about this, it's as a parent, you're in constant reprogramming mode.
Absolutely.
With the AP classes and the college credits, and they're pushing kids to do things sooner and sooner and faster. It's an impossible speed. And they're not allowed to be, in some respects, not allowed to be kids. And so
they have to be right all the time. Otherwise, their grades suffer. And if their grades suffer, they're not going to get into the right college. So they're always pushing to do things right.
Exactly.
And as parents, I always tell them, just do your best.
Right.
If your best is a C, take the C and say, next time I'm going to try my best and try to elevate that. Don't beat yourself up because you get a B or a C. And I think that's another story I'm not going to tell, because it's not my
right. Yeah. I just tell my children, you know what, when they come in with a C, for example, I'll say, did you work hard for it? Yes, I did. I said, then I'm proud of you. You know, I am proud of you no matter how you do, as long as you tried, and you're going to learn, and you're going to try to better your best. So that's where I come from it.
Exactly. Me too. Hello from Ryan, Demetrius, Josh, Mel, and Sam on YouTube. Hi, Sebastian.com for watching. So I thank you, Kathy, for watching. I really appreciate it. That is really the gift that we can give our children, because not every subject is your best subject.
Right.
You know, you excel in one thing and in another thing. Hey, Talk to Me movement, a powerful show. Thank you for a great message, Shelley. Yes.
Thanks.
And so to teach our children that it's okay. You can strive for the A. And that's the thing. You're striving for it, but sometimes it's so subjective now. You know, teachers can be so subjective about whether they like you, whether they think your work was good or not good. So just let it go. You did your best. Yes, I agree with you. Then I'm proud of you. If for some reason you tell me, I could have done better, you know, I kind of phoned that in, then we have a problem.
Right. You know, and I mean, we have, as parents, these little eyes that are on us at all times. And I've had to be really wary that we lead by example, don't we? I remember early in PlumbTalk's development doing webinars, and there was one webinar that I completely bombed. I am telling you, I wasn't prepared. The videos didn't play. It was a nightmare. And I remember my oldest son watching, going, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Do you feel bad? Are you gonna?" And I looked at him. I says, "You know what? I don't want to feel bad about it. I'm not going to feel bad about it. You know what? The video failed because of this. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to go on." And
Exactly.
I've noticed him apply that principle. So I am really proud of him.
Yes. And CC on YouTube is saying, my grandson says he is a straight C student. Oh, Noah's saying Shelley is such an incredible light for all of us. She certainly
I
is.
love you, Noah.
Well, our time is up, Shelley. So quickly
So
again.
fast.
I know it's incredible. But I'm so thankful to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us again.
Well, thank you for having me. I love you guys. I love what you're doing. The show is amazing, and I'm just so blessed to have met you.
Thank you. Yes, we are. And tell us quickly before you go, how can they get your book?
Oh, my book is actually available on Amazon. It's in Kindle version and the regular paperback. It's also at Books A Million and also Barnes and Noble. So you can go to any of those three sources.
Hold it up again. Let's see it.
Sure. It's To Break or Bounce.
Or bounce.
Finding balance, stability, and resilience in our lives.
Very good. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast.
Hey, Alicia here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that episode of the Audacious Confidence Show, check out more of the episodes that we have right there. And don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss another episode of the Audacious Confidence Show.